Hello out there in YouTube land.
And welcome back to our channel.
We thought, because tonight is the spookiest of all nights, we would do something a little different.
Something a little personal too.
Yes. We thought we'd tell some real ghost stories for this Halloweeniest of all Halloweens.
And we've had quite a few things happen in our lives. And we've had our parents tell us a few things.
So sit down, relax, and prepare for some real frights and chills.
So who wants to start?
You can start.
So I think I'll start with a story. I was probably 9 or 10. And I lived in Pennsylvania. And we lived in a house that was historically a few hundred years old. And it was by a canal that had been used as a transportation system, way back in history. So it had a lot of interesting places. And in this area of Pennsylvania, there was an infamous structure or area in and of itself called Hexenkoff Rock. And it was reported to have been the site of what they call powwows or rituals to raise spirits of the dead or whatever else they wanted to do. So in this house, it was old and we had a lot of bumps and pops. Kind of your normal historical house. But one evening, it was a bit different. And I had a bedroom in the upper portion of the house. And we had stairs to it. And I remember I was very much asleep and something woke me up. I heard somebody come up the stairs. And it was very distinct footfalls, very distinct, as in somebody would be wearing boots. Well, it was probably around 2, 3 o'clock in the morning. Nobody's up in the house. I shouldn't even be awake. And these footfalls come straight into what was a room in front of mine, and I always kept my door open. And it was an office for my parents. Whatever it was, and I, at this time, have had the covers over my head, walked into that room and walked into my bedroom. And I could actually feel the vibration of the footfalls. Because my bed was, it was a twin-size bed. And they stopped at the foot of my bed. So I'm laying there and I can actually hear breathing. And it was odd. I thought, this is strange. This is scary. And there's somebody in my room. Well, I finally gathered up my courage and I flipped my covers off. And there's nobody there. Nobody in my room. Nothing. So I thought, well, maybe I dreamed it. You often do. Maybe you think, this is not real. So I lay back down and I hear breathing again. And it's very calm breathing. It's as if you were looking at somebody and you could feel just this presence standing there. You know when somebody's looking at you, especially when you're asleep. So this breathing starts again and the footfalls walk around my bed. And all of a sudden I feel a hand lay down on my shoulder. And it is ice cold. Ice cold in the room. And I jerked over and I looked again, but there's nobody there. So I finally sit up and I start thinking of what do I do? I'm hearing these things. I'm hearing this breathing. Well, there's nothing you can do. You're at the mercy of whatever this is. So as I'm sitting there and I'm waiting, the footsteps start, and they walk back around to the end of my bed. And on my wall, I start seeing a shadow, as if there's somebody actually walking in my room. They stop at the foot of the bed. And before my eyes, a soldier materialized. Somebody from the Revolution. I found out, later looking some things up, and it scared me. It scared me to death. Being a child. I actually hid under my blankets and I said, you need to go away. You're not here anymore. This is not your world anymore. And all evening long, there were just footsteps and breathing in the upper portion of my house. Well, later, going back as an adult,
Mm-hmm.
that area was thick, not only in Revolutionary War history, but also in ritual history, in the occult, and pirates.
Mm.
There were a lot of pirate histories in that particular region. So that was, I think, my first, full apparition experience. And it was terrifying.
Sure, absolutely.
It was terrifying.
My family, both sides, lived in haunted houses. So I'll start out with my mom's epic ghost tale. She had gone to visit her grandmother when she was 4 years old. Her grandmother used to have a very large old farmhouse in the mountains of West Virginia. At one time, her grandfather was a successful businessman in town, and that's how they had this big house.
Mm-hmm.
At any rate, so my mom's like 4 years old, and her grandmother's very ill. And you know how family gathers around when someone's very ill.
Right.
And so my mom decides that she wants to drink water because everybody is pretty much in the living room watching TV.
Mm-hmm.
And so they say, oh, we'll just go in the kitchen. Uncle Joe's in there. He'll get you a glass of water. So in order to get to the kitchen, she had to go down this dark hallway, past several rooms, and then she'd finally get to the kitchen. And as she's walking down the hallway, this white figure floats out of the music room and into the hallway wall opposite, right in front of her.
Oh my gosh.
So she freaks out, understandably so. I mean, 4 years
I would.
old, I would be scared to death. So she runs back, tells everybody. They all blow her off like, it's nothing, you've imagined it, the whole usual thing people say when somebody encounters something with supernatural. Well, the very next night, everyone's back at the house, and grandmother has taken a turn for the worse. And they're all in the front hall because the doctor's gone upstairs to check on the grandmother. That white figure floats down the stairs, and everybody can see it float down and disappear at the bottom of the stairs. As soon as it reached the bottom of the stairs, the nurse ran out of the grandmother's room and told everyone that grandma had died.
That's pretty...
Yeah.
That's intense.
That's an epic ghost story.
Yeah.
And my mom will still tell it to this day. So it happened. I truly believe that.
Yeah. I tend to believe, many of those stories, the ghost stories.
People blow them off way too easily.
The dark speaks.
It does.
You just have to remember to listen.
Yeah. And be careful.
Yes. Always be careful.
Another story, my cousin Josh used to like to tiptoe into the dark, is what I'll call it. I was his source of anything, like, truly supernatural. He was, obsessed with zombie movies before it was popular to be obsessed with zombie movies, so he would watch those. But anything that pertained to tarot cards or Ouija boards or whatever, he would contact me. So, this one weekend, he decides he wants to play with a Ouija board. I'm like, well, it's not that great of an idea to play with a Ouija board. You kind of use a Ouija board and you're very careful. You don't really play with them. But I would rather you do it with me where I know what I'm doing versus someone else that could invite things that are bad into your house. So, unbeknownst to my cousin, I think, he didn't realize that my house had an open portal where we constantly had shadow people come through, all types of
Right.
things. And we arranged the Ouija board in front of the TV set, which the TV was butted up against the wall that shared my parents' bedroom. And my parents' bedroom is where that portal was. Well, we're sitting there and we're just, kind of doing the usual thing you do. You put your hands on the planchette and you're just kind of like, are there any spirits out there that wish to speak with us?
Right.
And it starts to move. And it repeatedly just keeps saying, I want to stab Josh.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, I mean, nothing else. We would try asking it different questions, and it would say things, well, I want to kill. And we would say, who? And it would spell out Josh. Every single time. And I was like, we're not going to mess with this anymore. And
right.
we, put the board away, and, I blessed the house and everything. But Josh still remembers to this day feeling something scratch his back the last time something said it was going to stab him.
I guess it meant business.
Yeah. For whatever reason, the spirit did not like my cousin Josh, and I, to this day, cannot tell you why, because my cousin Josh is actually a really nice person.
He's actually a very nice person. I know Josh.
So I don't know why on earth it had such a...
It had a vendetta.
It did, evidently.
Had a vendetta.
Yes.
So I think probably something similar to that from me. My cousin and I, and she is since been in the Air Force. She's married. She's, elsewhere. And she still remembers this. We were visiting with my aunt. My grandmother had taken me and, Lynette had come with me. We were in Ohio in a brand new house of my aunt's. And it was a beautiful house. I mean, it was gorgeous. But again, it was a little bit old. It was historic. So, one evening, we are getting ready for bed because we were sharing a room. And my aunt had a little Yorkie.
Okay.
And I absolutely adored this Yorkie. She slept with me in the bed every night.
Mm-hmm.
Well, all of a sudden, Penelope, who's the Yorkie, starts growling, like the hackles go up. She starts growling and barking at the door. And Lynette and I couldn't figure out what it was.
Mm-hmm.
Well, eventually she stops, so we go to bed that night. Well, the next day we had gone swimming. This is broad daylight. We go up to change. Well, Penelope comes with us. Starts growling and barking at the doorway again to our bedroom. And then all of a sudden the door slams.
Ooh.
I mean, it slammed. And it scared us both. We jumped and screamed. And that evening we just tried to tell my aunt, there's something wrong here. The door just closed. Oh, it was nothing. It was the wind. That's what we were told.
Mm-hmm.
Which, could be trying to help us get through the fear of it, something. The Yorkie, all she did that evening, and Lynette and I were reading. I think we were reading Little House on the Prairie series of all the things. And we were in our room, and we were getting ready. We'd already gotten ready for bed. We were reading a little bit before bed. And the dog started growling again. And she actually yelped and ran from the room.
Oh, my.
That night, nobody slept in the house. Scratching on walls was heard. Breathing, growling.
Oh, my.
At one point, Lynette and I actually watched a shadow appear in the mirror of our dresser in the room, and we saw horns and branches developing out from it, and it terrified us. So we ended up in my aunt's bed
Yeah,
for the remainder of the evening. And then actually the following day, she had her pastor come and bless the house.
Yeah, I don't blame her.
But that was, animals know.
Oh, absolutely.
Animals know.
Anytime you see your cat, your dog, or, I've not seen a guinea pig do it, but, a rabbit I've
They
seen.
do. Guinea pigs
Do
do
they?
have a response, and it's something that even science cannot explain. They go into almost a trance-like state, and they'll chirp. And it's a very weird chirp. And they do not know why the guinea pig does that, but it will. And it's not a predator response, because their response to a predator is to go quiet and lay down because they are, a prey animal. But they will chirp.
Wow. That's pretty cool. Another thing that happened directly to me is my early 20s, I was working for a home health agency. And this one lady I was working with was in a assisted living facility, and the section that she was in was not like a hospital. It was like little apartments.
Right.
And but she was progressing with Alzheimer's, unfortunately. And so they had me coming in the evening because she would get agitated if someone wasn't there sitting with her.
Right.
And she was the sweetest lady. She loved watching Gene Kelly movies and things like that. So, every evening I'd pop whatever movie she wanted to watch into the VCR, and we'd watch a movie, and then she'd get tired, and I'd help her get ready for bed, and she'd go to bed. It's a very calm, relaxing evening. Usually when I would get there, I would meet her in the cafeteria where she had just finished her meal.
Mm-hmm.
And she had this, usual group of ladies that she sat with and stuff, and everybody seemed to get along really well. Well, this one specific evening, I go in and she's not sitting at her usual table, which I find really strange. And she's sitting off to herself across from this other woman that I'd never seen before.
Oh, that's odd.
And so I sit down and I'm talking to the lady and, asking her how she's doing and, whatnot, the usual thing you would do. And she's chatting with me a little bit, and she's just like, I really want to go back to my room. I'm like, well, okay. Because I thought, well, maybe she wasn't feeling that well. She hadn't eaten much of her dinner. And the lady that was sitting across suddenly said, would you like to see my necklace? And I'm like, okay, sure, whatever. She holds up an inverted crucifix. Now, most people know that real Satanists, that is not their symbol.
No.
Real Satanists will have the Luciferian symbols or whatever.
Right.
They won't have an inverted crucifix. And she wanted me to touch it, and I said no. And she held it out to the lady I was with, and she touched it, and then she jerked back and she said, I really want to go back to my room now. So I took her back, and she didn't want to watch her movie or anything, so we watched the news for a little while, and she started complaining that her back was hurting. And so I put her to bed early and stuff, and I'm sitting there waiting and stuff, and she starts moaning, and so I get up, and I'm, ask her what's going on. She's like, my back is really hurting. So I call the nurse, and, so they can give her some sort of pain medication or something.
Right.
Because she had something in her chart that she could have.
Right.
And so the nurse gave her medication and left, and I'm sitting there, and where I'm sitting is on a sofa where I could look into her bedroom.
Mm-hmm.
And up above her bed, she had this painting that was of a ballet scene of Swan Lake. Really pretty painting, but it was kind of like a painting that was kind of far away in the theater. So you would see the stage and all the little tiny ballerinas and stuff.
Right.
Well, the lady starts getting more and more agitated, the pain medication is just not working, and she's getting worse and worse, and her, groans and stuff are getting louder and louder. And I look up, and it's like the painting totally turns black.
Oh, that's not good.
No. And I'm like, what is this? And as I'm sitting there watching, the black starts to envelop and fade out into the room. And the woman's groans are getting louder and louder. So I stand up and I look at that blackness and I say, you are not invited. You are not wanted here. Leave now. You are never to return. And it went away. The moment it went away, her groaning stopped and she slept peacefully.
Well, that sounds like the demonic.
Yeah. I seriously do not think that that person that interacted with us had good things in mind. I don't know what she was. She certainly was not, a Satanist, because I know Satanists don't do that.
Right.
But this was certainly someone that had bad intentions.
Absolutely.
So that was probably like my creepiest ghost
Your
story.
creepiest, yeah. That is pretty creepy.
Yeah.
I mean, that's creepy.
And then my dad lived in a haunted house when he was growing up.
Mm-hmm.
And they had a lot of random things happen. Across the hillside, it was a Civil War burial ground.
Okay.
And every evening, roughly around 7 o'clock, you'd see this figure of a woman in like a long black dress.
Mm-hmm.
Like a morning dress and stuff. And she'd just
okay.
kind of float over the hillside and then disappear. Almost like something had happened and she was visiting the grave of a loved one.
Right.
Another thing that happened was that there was a black cat in the basement. Not a regular black cat. This was a giant black panther in West Virginia.
Which is not common.
No.
However, I have seen that.
Have you?
When I was young with my grandmother.
Mm-hmm.
One evening we actually watched one slink at twilight. Slink through following a railroad.
Oh.
And it disappeared.
Wow. Yeah, the one in the basement at my dad's house, their shower was actually in the basement.
Mm-hmm.
So they would have to go downstairs in order to take a shower every day. And it was an old time basement, so there wasn't like a lot of lighting and stuff. There was like lighting near the stairs and lighting over to the shower, but there wasn't any light back in the corner where the cat was at.
Right.
And they would see the red eyes glaring from that darkness every time they go to and from the shower. And they could see it was a cat because it would come close enough to the light where you could make it out.
Right.
But, so that was like one of the weird things. Another thing is that they had a ghost that would actually open the front door after walking up the steps. You could hear the steps. It would open the front door, come in, walk over, sit down in the rocking chair and start rocking. It didn't do anything. It just came in to rock in its chair, I guess.
And sometimes they can be benevolent.
Yeah. And so, that was, that house, what they later found out that they think might have contributed to what all happened there was that right before they had decided to move, because that was back when a lot of the coal camps were and stuff, and so my grandfather didn't stay in like houses very long because they'd have to move because the mine would like make changes or whatever, so they'd have to move to another house. Well, right before they moved, they went down into this shed that was on the corner of the property they hadn't been in before.
Mm-hmm.
It was full of old funeral flowers.
That's strange.
So they carried the funeral flowers and just kind of put them up there, like where the Civil War graveyard was. And after that, all the activity in the house stopped. So I don't know.
It's as simple as that.
Yeah, so I don't know if like someone had gotten mad and taken all their flowers down, and then that was kind of like the retaliation to get them back. I don't know.
Might have
but
been.
It was, just kind of a really unusual thing.
Yeah. I think some of my, speaking of Civil War experiences, sometimes I will go hiking on battlefields, and Gettysburg is one of my go-to places, as well as Antietam.
Mm-hmm.
And if you know anything about history, there's some of, amongst the bloodiest battles.
Yes.
And Gettysburg is particularly interesting because we were hiking in a little bit of a more remote area on the battlefield. And at that time, I was hiking with my husband, and we stopped because we could hear distant cannon fire. And cannon fire kept up for a long, long time. And then all of a sudden, we heard sounds around us, like people moving, or groans occasionally. And we finally came out to a sign on the path. I said, this is particularly interesting to me because I keep hearing kind of sounds of anguish.
Mm-hmm.
We were standing on a field hospital site.
Oh my goodness.
So hearing distant cannon fire, and it actually progressed into musket fire.
Wow.
And hearing the groans, we were almost in a time warp in some cases.
Wow.
So it's very interesting, those places, because there's still so much activity.
And understandably so. So many people died there in horrific ways that you could understand why they wouldn't be at rest.
Right. And for some of them, they're probably still trying to finish that last order.
Yeah. Because you get stuck in a loop.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's all the ghost stories I have for this evening.
Yes.
So, hope you enjoyed them. Please enter our little Halloween giveaway down below. It's in the Rafflecopter link.
And if you have a good ghost story, please share.
We'd be happy to hear it.
Until then, stay spooky.
Bye-bye.